Number 2 at 2.2, Josh Hader at 2.6.
I'm going to go with Craig Kimbrell.
Number 3 at 2.1.
Is Aaron Loop on here? 10, maybe? Close. He's got to be close. Aaron Loop?
Yes, he's on the list. He is ranked.
Let's go.
I have
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th with a WAR of 1.6.
I'm going to go with Kenley Jansen.
Kenley Jansen is right above Aaron Loop with 1.8.
Blake Trinan.
Blake Trinan also tied with Kenley Jansen 1.8. That was a good bullpen.
I'm going to take your teammate Edwin Diaz.
Edwin Diaz, number 4 with a WAR of 2.
Dang. That boy Shug.
It's getting thin now.
Melanson?
Melanson did not make the list. Not the top 10.
Luke Jackson?
I'll go with
one.
the Braves closer. What's his name?
Wilson.
Will Smith.
Will Smith did not make the list.
Oh, really?
Pitchers you missed. Devin Williams, 1.4
Okay.
WAR, and A.J. Minter and Tyler Rogers tied at 1.3.
Ooh.
Okay, so right now the score is Ariel, you have 9, and Trevor, you have 7. And Trevor, you go first in this category. This is the completely random category. This is most wins in relief by an NL relief pitcher. Top 10. This is a completely random category because it's just completely random.
Jury's Familia.
Jerry's Familia was number 3 with 9.
With 9 wins.
I'm going to go with Trevor May.
Trevor May made
Yes.
the list at number.
Yes.
You had 7 wins.
That's
That was tied for the top 10.
I figured Ruvain would put you on one of these lists at least.
Yeah, gotta be. Yeah. Who else? Someone had the number 1. It was over 10, or it had to be 10. And
Number one had 12.
Whoa.
Oh, who was it? Oh my God, I've seen this. I think they were in the playoffs. Were they in the They were a playoff team.
Yes.
Was it Tyler Rogers?
Tyler Rogers is on the list. He also had 7.
I'm going to go back to Devin Williams here.
Devin Williams had 8.
Yep.
AJ Minter had a lot, didn't he? AJ Minter.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
That is incorrect. He is not on the list.
I'm going to go with Giovanni Gallegos.
He is also not on the list.
Jeez.
The leader in NL wins for the National League this past year, Brent Suter with 12.
Brent Suter,
There it was.
wow.
Yeah, we played
Alex
him right at
Reyes
the end.
had
That's what
10.
I know Kittredge
7
had a lot in the AL.
And Chris Stratton, Daniel Bard, Archie Bradley, Jose Alvarado all had 7 along with you, Trevor, and Tyler Rogers.
Oh, wow.
So final score is 11-9. Ariel, you won
Oh,
this.
wow. All right.
But how about this? A bonus 3-point question. What was Aaron Loop's favorite beer post-victory?
I don't know this.
It's Busch Light.
That's correct.
He had a neon sign in his locker. That's pretty hard to miss.
That's it. He
Oh,
was
look,
on-
I
he was on
won!
He was on his,
Totally not
he was-
rigged.
every Zoom he was on, you saw that can of beer there. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. I didn't pay too much attention to it, but yeah, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. That was great, Ruvain. I hope you enjoyed that, Trevor.
That was great. I love that. That was awesome.
I want to talk a little bit about analytics, going about more about numbers here. But you talk a lot about analytics on your show, the Trevor May Show on YouTube, and you've developed this stat called CQR. Could you explain to everybody what that is and how it actually helps you become a better pitcher?
Yeah, so CQR, and I almost put a plus at the end, but I realized that actually has a point, and I didn't have a point for it. I just wanted it to look cool. CQR is
well, the plus, of course, is just where the average is 100 for the league.
Exactly.
It's just scaled.
Exactly. I'm like, that doesn't apply here. You
Right.
can't make your thing look cooler, Trevor. Just go with CQR. So CQR is command quality ratio. That's how I call it. What I call it, and basically, it is the number of times that the standard for me in my head is I go back and watch all my outings. I know pretty much the moment I walk off the field how many pitches I threw, and how many of those pitches were basically, did I execute my command plan? Where did I throw it where I wanted to? Did I execute my plan well? This is within. I usually use a standard of within 2 inches of the spot because pitching's hard and it's not easy. You don't just stick it every time. But and I would give myself a 1 out of 1 in that situation. If I'm in a spot where I don't quite hit the spot, but I do miss in a low risk, high reward way, aka 0-2 fastball up and away, and I miss above the zone to where it's very low chance of it being hit really hard, but also a very high chance of it being swung and missed at. That would be a quality. I'd give myself a 0.5 point on that. And the same thing with, for example, you get 0-2, I throw a fastball. I'm trying to go up and away in the corner of the zone or off the plate, and I throw it right down the middle. He still swings and misses. That's still 0 because I didn't execute the plan. I didn't execute the pitch. It was a way for me to separate my pitching performance with the traditional statistical results because there's just too many variables, as you guys very well know, that go into ERA and everything, honestly.
Sure.
And most things are, especially for a reliever, more than almost any other position, everything's out of my hands except for when I throw the ball. So even winning and losing most of the time. So we have the least amount of effect on that, or at least unless we struggle. So basically, I would go through and I would relive it again, and I would be as kind of cold and calculated about it as possible and objective, and give myself an honest percentage ratio, if you will. So built out that ratio through the season, and I realized that I found a pattern. I was looking for patterns mostly. I'm like, so where's the line where I'm having more tradition, like the results are good as well, as opposed to more often than not the results are bad if I'm not, my CQR is below a certain percentage. And so I started to notice that as around 60% for me. That's that number, that line is going to change because of the aforementioned stuff. I can get away with a lot of other things that other guys might not be able to, and there's also guys that can get away with even more than I can. So like their ratio might be lower that they're aiming for, and their command isn't as good because they either throw really hard or they're violent or whatever, whatever it is, they're effectively wild, if you will. So different factors can do these things, but you got to get a sample size to figure out where that line is. I found that 60% was kind of a target. If I wanted to be above 60% on average, I think that will translate into a very high. That would be a better year than normal for me, which is what I'm always trying to accomplish. I would like to improve every single year. And I ended up being about 57%. I started doing it in May, like actually had this idea and started to track it. But the exciting part, and something I'm actually working on a video right now about, is I actually do a lot of tracking my athletic data to my physical data with a Whoop and with an Oura Ring. I wear them both when I pitch. They give you tons of data, and I started to attach my ability to command the ball with how I felt that day. It gives me a pretty good measure of how well did I sleep the night before. Did that produce a lower ability to throw the ball where I wanted to? And it turned out that yes, it definitely does. Not in the biggest way ever, but like it was a 6-7%, on average jump, which is a lot.
Could be enough, yeah.
That's a pitch plus of a 20 pitch outing. If you just need one more pitch really well commanded, and if you can't get that because you're tired, then that's enough to get that extra 2 hours of sleep the night before. So we've been tracking that stuff, and I'm actually working with one of our analytics guys at the Mets, who is just kind of trying to attach actual biomechanics data and movement of the pitches as well. Did your break on your slider go down also when you weren't commanding? How was your stuff moving more or less or weirder or different? Was that affecting the command, or was your physical data affecting your movement? How are these things correlating with each other? And logic says that, yeah, of course they're going to correlate, but how much do they correlate? So that's the really interesting part to me. I haven't really come up with the conclusions yet, and you got to stay tuned for the YouTube video. But it was a really, really nerdy thing to do. I did it in that I was done pitching. What I I organized all this stuff the second to last day of the season. Basically, Hef told me, "Hey, you're done. Like you just pitched 3 out of 4, and we're done in 2 days. So we're just not going to pitch." I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm going to work on this spreadsheet." And that's what CQR is. I came up with that. I think it's a really interesting way. I think that kids can just do it at home too. That was another kind of motivation for me. If you think about command as the most important thing when you're young, I think that could take you really far in baseball. So I thought it would be a really interesting thing to teach, because I would love to teach kids more when I'm done playing or towards the end of my career too. And I thought that would be an interesting thing that they could also do, because you don't need like a track man to do it. You just need it behind the camera, or behind the pitcher camera, and out in center field. You could do it for a Little League game. So it was interesting. It was an interesting concept. And I think there's something there. I think that it's going to be really helpful moving forward.
Well, I like CQR for 3 reasons. One, because it's nerdy, which we're nerds here, so that always scores points. Number 2, and this is a mathematical reason why it's good, is that ERA, the divisor is innings, or even if you're talking about strikeout rate, it could be per at bat or per plate appearance. But when you're talking about at the level of per pitch, that is there is more data, because the sample size is so much larger. Things converge a lot faster. Like if you have a whole season, you pitched this year, you threw 1,117 pitches. Okay, that's a pretty big sample size, as opposed to saying just 63 innings. The sample size is bigger, and you can get a much bigger feel for how it's going in season, right? Like the stats become meaningful after just a couple of outings, not a whole season. ERA takes much longer to stabilize. So I like that for that reason. And the other thing is, it sounds very similar to a metric that I created called WPDI. And the thing about WPDI is where we're tracking 3 questions. Do you pitch? Is a pitch in the zone or out of the zone? Did the batter swing or not? And did they make contact? And just those 3 questions, there's different possibilities. Like you can throw out of the zone with a swing and a miss. You can throw in the zone and no swing. Just looking at the percentage of pitches that you throw in each zone and comparing them to other major league players actually tells a lot. So, for example, you're in the 95th percentile of in the zone swung on and missed. Like only 1 out of 20 pitchers in Major League Baseball have less of a percentage of pitches that are in the zone and swung on and missed, just like you. That's something you're executing well. You also do very well of out of the zone, swung on, and no contact. To me, that's even better, because if you're generating swings out of the zone, I mean, they're not going to square up on that as well. So you're in the 85th percentile of that one. So that's a statistic that I made up that just tracks what percentage of the pitchers are going to which locations, and are they swinging and making contact or not, and that tells a lot. So I think there's some corollaries between your stat and what I have. So that's why I enjoyed hearing about that.
I love it. I love that too, because I think that what would be valuable as, for example, to an actual team, when you say those things, is it gives you an idea of, especially if you have it on guys in AA, high A, low A, that aren't necessarily your top prospects that you're monitoring very closely, but you're like, for some reason, there's outliers here in these zones, and they're always swinging. What about? And then we know enough now about movement and biomechanics and physics of how baseball moves and why guys are swinging and stuff, and why they don't swing at other things. You know more about that it can then lead you to concrete data on those things that then you can find and say, let's develop you with these strengths in mind. And that's, all I'm telling you right now is that's what the Rays do. And that's, And that's why they, I am a player and I don't like this part of things, but that's why they just don't have to pay anybody, but they get the results and then, let you go make your money from another team. That's just kind of how they've been doing it, but it's working for them. And they figured something out. Well, and everyone's searching for their own version of that based on, the resources they have at their disposal. But it's pretty kind of foolproof way to approach things. It's a really good process.
Right. And and one thing the Rays have done in the past 2 years or so is they get pitchers who have very weird or very different arm slots or angles, and they're coming in all the way from the left, all the way from the right. And something that you've talked about, and maybe you can explain a little bit, is that generating horizontal movement on pitches is a very large key to generating whiffs. And it's probably more important than vertical movement up and down. Could you explain why you think that
now, yes,
horizontal
in the last couple of years?
Yeah, okay.